Welcome back, everyone. We hope you enjoyed Boiling Point. I'm Karen Davis, Senior Film Programmer for the Mill Valley Film Festival. I'm a woman with a massive amount of excessively wild and curly dark hair and very sensible black-rimmed glasses. I'm here with the director of the film, Philip Barantini. Welcome to Mill Valley, Philip, virtually, and congratulations on the film.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm Phil Barantini, as you said, the director of the film. I'm wearing a mustard jumper with a blue cap, and I have a quite neat beard, I like to think. Yeah. And I'm from Manchester in the UK. I'm from Liverpool originally, but I live in Manchester now. And for people who likes football and soccer, they'll know that that's a big rivalry. But we won't talk about that today.
You bridge the gap.
Yeah.
So I'll lead off with a question. I'm wondering how the idea for Boiling Point came about. I've read it was based on a short film that you had done a few years back. And so let me get this straight for the audience. This is your first or maybe your second feature-length film. So why did you decide to make things as difficult for yourself as any filmmaker possibly can and shoot this film in one single take? I mean, you really out-Goodfella'd the opening scene of Goodfellas. You out-Hitchcocked Hitchcock, who in Rope even had 8 cuts. So why did you do this to yourself, and how many? Just wondering how many 90-minute takes did you have to film to get it right?
Right. Well, I was an actor for 22 years. And I'd always wanted to make the leap into directing, but I'd never sort of had the confidence to do that. And then, without going into too much detail, something quite tragic happened in my life. My mom passed away quite suddenly. And it sort of spurred me on it gave me the kick up the backside to make the leap and sort of jump off the cliff and say, look, let's just see what happens. So I made a short, and then prior to that, working in as an actor for so many years, you have actors have downtime, lots and lots of downtime if you're just a jobbing actor, so you have to sort of make ends meet and work in different, as a waiter, as a bar, behind the bars, call centers, whatever it may be, to bring in some money. And I wanted to, my grandfather was a chef, my cousin was also a chef, and I was really passionate about food, and so I started working in kitchens, and I did that for 12 and a half years, and I worked from the bottom, and I worked my way up all the way up to a head chef in various different places in London. And along the way, I saw lots of, I had a great time, but also at the same time, there was moments where I was really, it was quite a dark place to work and to be a part of. So I'd always had an idea to sort of write something and direct something that was set in that world, because I'd seen a lot of movies and a lot of TV shows. And some of them are good. Some of them just didn't portray that world, in my opinion, in the right light. Or, they didn't dive deep enough into the dark side of it. A lot of them were comedies, or, just didn't really hit the nail for me, especially having lived that experience. And so I decided to write something, a short, just to see whether it worked. And I was toying with the idea of how we were going to sort of shoot it, whether I wanted it to be quite erratic and fast-paced and have the dialogue all overlapping, because that's what it's like in a kitchen. It's really high energy, and so I talked with my cinematographer Matt Lewis, who I'd worked with on the first short that we did together, and I previously worked with him as an actor and saw his talent. He's only young, he's 25 now. And sort of, we talked about ideas, and he just said, look, why don't we try and do it all in one take? Because that way, and I was like, yeah, but I don't want it to be this, like, look how clever we are, And so we talked about how we would do it. And then it suddenly dawned on me that would add an extra layer of tension. And that's what I wanted. I wanted it to be, almost not letting the audience take their eyes off the screen, and them to go on this journey and not know what's going to happen next, and also have it play out in real time. So we did the short, and it was 20 minutes, and it was really successful in terms of festivals, and we were nominated for a BIFA award over here, and it's sort of, myself and James Cummings, who wrote both the short and the feature, we sort of said, look, there's an opportunity for us to definitely expand this into a feature. How are we going to do it? So we had the idea of, one of the ideas was to have the short 20 minutes as the opening 20 minutes of the feature. And then, we go into sort of our lead character, Stephen Graham's character's recovery and what he goes through in his recovery after his addiction and what happens to him. And it just wasn't really, like, I wasn't getting as excited as I was with the short. And literally I was doing my first feature, Villain. I was on set and I was lying in bed one night and I just sat up, bolt upright in bed. And I was like, oh my goodness, we could definitely do this feature in one take. I know it's been done before, Victoria, a fantastic German movie, which was, I remember coming out of that movie and being like so stressed and like, dripping in sweat. And I just thought if we could, achieve that in this, then, I think we'd be on to a winner. So, but the idea the first person I had to get on board was Matt, the DP. So I called him up and said, look, I've had this idea to do the feature in one take. What do you say? And, he was just like, let's do it. I'm, so excited. And then we had to get Stephen Graham on board with that. And he was like, you're crazy. Let's do it. And then it was all, all systems go really. And the idea for those who've seen the short, the short only follows Stephen Graham's character. It only follows the chef. And the sort of rule for the short was we never leave Stephen. And we couldn't really maintain that in a feature, I think, because, we would have had to, Stephen would have had to go to different various tables and go outside. And it would have been kind of unrealistic for him as the chef to do that. So we come up with a rule whereby the camera never leaves a person. It's not allowed to just roam off on its own and just float away and, go and find somebody else. It has to stay with any character. And that enabled us then to create all these different characters and different pockets of society and life and what people go through on a daily basis, but not spending too much time on it, just quick in and out of, flash of people's lives and what they go through. And that's when we got really excited. And, it was really daunting to think, we're going to do this feature in one take. But there was no point when I was like, it's not doable. We're not going to be able to do this, because everybody that was on board with the fact that we have to do it this way. And myself and Matt, the DOP, we spent weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, just the two of us, mapping it out. And the first thing we needed to get was the location. Yeah. So luckily, one of my best friends owns the restaurant that we used. And I said to him, look, can we shoot this movie in the restaurant? And he'd had some things that had been shot in the restaurant before, and they'd left a mess and they'd, things like that. And he was reluctant, but I said, look, this is what we're going to plan on doing. And he was like, I said, we'll pay you to shut the restaurant down for a couple of weeks. And he was on board and he loved the idea. So, and what he also loved was the fact that his name is Andy Jones and the restaurant's name is Jones and Sons. And I said, look, we'll just keep the name.
Yes, I snooped that a little bit, found that out. And so have Andy and his restaurant staff in reality at his restaurant in London or others in the food industry seen the film, and have you gotten reaction from them?
Yeah, I mean, Andy saw it at a screening and he was amazing. Him and his team was so helpful. The one thing he said to us was, you can have the restaurant for the whole week apart from Saturday and Sundays, because they were his busiest days. And he'd already got, he's just such a busy restaurant. So we were, we said, fine, yeah, we can work with that. But even on Saturday and Sunday, Matt and I were sat at the restaurant at a table, just mapping out, just constantly and when we had the empty space, I would be running around playing every different character and he'd be following me with his phone initially. And then we moved on to a DSLR camera. And then we sort of built the rig, which was a incredible piece of kit which I can come on to later. But yeah, people who've watched it, who've been in the industry, have had the reaction that I wanted. You know, that they can relate to it, hugely relate to it. You know, they've either seen this themselves or been through it. In fact, I actually had an email this morning, which woke me up, from a chef who basically said he'd watched the short film a couple of days ago, and it made him go into work in hand as a notice him, because he's going through exactly the same thing that our lead character is going through. And he said his wife is pregnant and he's about to have a baby boy, and he doesn't want to be found convulsing on the floor. And that is the biggest compliment and the best review we could possibly get.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And so,
you know, it made us, when we saw it at the Cannes Marché du Film, and it just, it was so unforgettable. We thought, you know, Bourdain would have actually said, I don't need to write Kitchen Confidential. This is it. This is Kitchen Confidential writ large in much more vivid color. I really can't help but think he would have completely approved of the film. I'm not sure what you think of his work, but he's lived it and died it. So
right.
So to do the film this way, I know you had to invest a huge amount of trust, not just in your DP, but in your actors. It's a superb ensemble cast. You've got some heavyweights. You've mentioned Stephen Graham, who our audiences might recognize from his roles in Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, from The Irishman, Rocket Man, all of which we've shown at the festival, or Jason Fleming from Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, and all the others are completely amazing. And you yourself, as you've mentioned, you have a lot of significant acting credits. You were in films like Ned Kelly with Heath Ledger, Band of Brothers. So can you speak about assembling this cast of knowns and perhaps lesser known actors, and what you were about to put them through? I'm sure needed to be something they'd have to think about before accepting. Can you talk about the cast?
Yeah, I mean, you know, for the first person we got, Stephen Graham is a very good friend of mine. We've known each other from Band of Brothers. He was in that as well, and we're both from Liverpool, so we've had a really close connection for many years. And actually, I asked him to be in my very first short film about a young boxer who's suffering from mental health. And he, you know, looking back, I was a bit disappointed that he turned me down. But what he actually said to me was, "Why don't you get this first one out the way? Let's see how you get on, and then maybe we'll talk." And you know, and so I showed him the first short, and he loved it. And then he came straight on board for Boiling Point. So you know, having him on board for the feature was a big. Was a big deal. You know, we as soon as you've got Stephen in a movie, then you know the rest is kind of easy to get hold of, because everybody wants to be a part of it, and that's what we found. You know, we managed to get Jason Fleming, because he's a great friend of Stephen's as well, and I think he's a phenomenal actor, and he's wonderful in this movie. But I needed for the other roles, I needed people that were going to be completely vulnerable and completely open to, you know, any eventuality, improvisation, you know, because even though the script we had a very solid base of our script when we wrote it, but we wrote it intentionally with no dialogue initially, because we workshopped the script for 2 weeks with the actors, and that's where we got our dialogue from, our actual dialogue. But even then, I said to the actors, I don't want you to be tied into that dialogue, because you know, Stephen is like a whirlwind when he's on set, and if he approaches you and he says something different, you need to be ready. And it's real as well. And I also said to them, you know, if you mess up at any point, you know, the audience probably won't know that you've messed up. Only you will. So just keep going, unless you like fall over and split your head open or something. You know, then we'll stop. But maybe we won't. Maybe we can go with it. You know, but the audition process for that was very different to what, you know, I did on my first feature and the other shorts as well. The one thing I said to the casting director was, I want for initially, you know, some self-tapes in from actors, and all I want them to do is to tell me a story, a real story, whilst making a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, a real story basically telling me the worst experience and the best experience they've had in a restaurant. And you'll be surprised that the amount of actors that turned up completely rehearsed and ready for this performance of a story to tell me. And that's not what I wanted. I want people to just turn on the camera and go, right, story. Let me think. And just have it come naturally to them. And they're the people that we brought back in for recalls. And then on the recall, when we got them back in, again, I didn't tell them what they were going to be doing or character, that they were potentially going to be up for. I had an actor friend of mine who was reading in with them, and we had a bit of a setup. I had some pots and pans and things like that, and bottles of wine and things. It's little props. And I said, right, come in. Here's the scenario. You're going to stand over there. You're going to be sat down as a customer, or you're going to be a waitress, or waiter, or a chef, and just go with it. And my friend had given him all the notes before what I wanted them to say to them. And, he would go in and be screaming in their faces, and they had to react naturally. And again, there was actors that couldn't quite handle it. They'd be like, oh, sorry, can we just go again? I wasn't expecting that. But then there was other actors that were just like, bang, I'm in it, I'm ready. Mm-hmm. And they're the ones that I wanted, to be completely ready.
So in their character that improvising a line, if Stephen says something different to them or is in their face when they weren't expecting it, that they can just roll with it. I can only imagine the commitment to the character that this cast has given to be able to integrate the spontaneity and the camera, the choreography of the camera always with them and following them. It's really extraordinary production.
I mean, that the camera, I said to Matt Lewis is also a character. He is a character in the film. He's our eyes, the audience's eyes. So he is playing everybody's, the feeling. And so he had to choreograph that, to within an inch of his life. He was, he had sleepless nights, going over it in his head and mapping it out. So yeah, it was a stressful, a good stress. I know.
Reminded of that last 20 minutes, the epic 20 minutes in which everything is really building up to the boiling point, not to coin a phrase, the way the tensions are building. You mentioned the tensions of not escaping to an edited transition. Starting from that scene, unforgettable scene in which a customer goes into anaphylactic shock, and then the restaurant staff has the meeting, and then there's a meltdown of rage and blame and fear and guilt, and Andy's response to all of this is completely believable, relatable, understandable, and it leaves us just breathless, which is just to commend you and the cast and the crew, which I imagine must have been quite minimal to be able to fit everybody into an enclosed space. We
had 3 sound recordists all hidden away in the space. We had some false walls put in in the restaurant so that and myself and all the crew were hidden behind. So as you go into the second sort of room where the racist table is, there's a wall next to him. Next to that table, that was a false wall, and we were all hidden behind there. And no word of a lie, there was 50 to 70 of us behind there.
Oh my God!
We were all squashed in, and then we had people hidden in the men's toilets. The sound recordists, everybody had radio mics on. There was over 35 radio mics all at once. So we had 3 sound recorders all hidden across different parts of the restaurant. Boom opera. We actually we actually shot tons and tons of behind the scenes footage from us writing the script, James and I, all the way up to the shoot, because I knew that people would either question the one take thing and be like, where's the cuts? It can't be achieved, and actually we have had a few people who still don't believe us, but so we're actually, I think we're going to cut maybe a 30-minute documentary about how we made it, depending on the success of the film, whether people want to know. So we're going to do that, and we had GoPros set up in the restaurant, and you see behind the camera is just like a bunch of people running around, and we had a lot of the crew were dressed up as waiters and waitresses or customers. They had the headsets and walkies, and when the camera's outside, they're like, okay, they're coming back in now. The camera coming back in and back to positions. So it was like a crazy, like a bit of a circus, really.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. So now that we are, it's sorry, it's not an overstatement. We are awestruck by your directing skills. Oh. So where will we be able to see your work in the months to come? Can you tell us?
Yeah, well, Boiling Point itself is going to be released in cinemas in November. I believe in the US, UK, and then across the different countries after that. And I'm signed up to a couple of movies, which I'm writing a couple of things with James Cummings, who I wrote Boiling Point with. One of them is kind of similar to Boiling Point in a way. It's not one take, but it's very long sequences, and it focuses on a natural disaster that happens and various different people's lives and how they deal with that natural disaster and them coming towards it or either leaving it. So that's one project that we're working on. We're working on a couple of other things as well. So yeah, I've got a lot of things in development. I'm starting prep on a movie, which I'm going to be out in the US shooting, which will be announced soon, I think. And that's very exciting. I'm really excited about that. I signed with a big agent over there, CAA, a few months ago, and it's just going from strength to strength. I'm so grateful for everything that's happening to me. I'm just I feel like I'm just riding this wave, and I can't wait for the future. I'm super excited, and I just can't wait.
We are excited for you, and we're so honored and delighted that you shared the work with us. It's unforgettable, and we will be looking for you in the months to come in all of the productions you've got planned. Thank you again on behalf of the Mill Valley Film Festival audience, and go Boiling Point. Thank you.
Thank you.